We're joined now by Colorado Democratic Senator Mark Udall and Tennessee Republican Bob Corker. Mr. Udall, welcome back. Could you possibly vote for the Boehner bill on the floor of the Senate?
Larry, I could not support the Boehner bill, although if you added in what Senator Reid and Senator McConnell proposed a couple of weeks ago, I think that's the way forward. What we ought to do is extend the debt ceiling through next year, not because of the political clock, you hear that argument made, but because we need to provide certainty to the markets. You've been talking a lot about the country's AAA rating. We've got to preserve that at all costs. So let's combine the two bills. Senator McConnell, Senator Reid have some, I think, thoughtful ideas. Let's pass a bill out of the Senate in the next 48 hours, combine the two, and then get it to the president's desk before the markets are stirred up anymore. This isn't healthy. This would be catastrophic if we defaulted.
Senator Corker, welcome back. Would you agree to the Udall compromise, which may be the Reid compromise?
I don't know exactly what that combination would be. I certainly do not support the Reid bill. I do support the Boehner bill coming over, but we all realize that, look, something else is going to be the thing that becomes law. And, you know, Larry, it's really interesting. You know, the debt ceiling issue, I think most Americans and all the markets understand we're going to deal with the debt ceiling. And even if we have to have a short-term extension for 2 days while we continue to work out the details, that'll be fine. What people have now focused on rightly is it's not just the debt ceiling increase. It's far more important that we do the right thing, that we have the kind of reductions in deficit spending that are necessary to really preserve the ratings that we have right now. That now has become the focus of markets all around the world, and that's what we got to do right.
All right.
Yes,
before we get to that, I want to just circle back. You say you support the Boehner bill. The Boehner bill has a contingency. We must have a balanced budget amendment passing both houses of Congress and going off into the states. That could take years. That could take 20 years. That could take 40 years. In other words, what I'm saying is I understand internal House politics. That might have been necessary to save Mr. Boehner's speakership. But as a matter of policy, to keep pushing this debt ceiling off and off, wouldn't it destroy the financial markets? Wouldn't it have destroyed the economy?
Well, look, the Boehner bill is not going to become law, and we all know that. And, Larry, what I've been focused on is, and I'm going to support it, but I know it's not going to become law. Senator Udall knows it's not going to become law, and the Reid bill is not going to become law. So what I hope will happen is over the next, and I believe will happen over the next short period of time, is we will come up with a bill that has the appropriate amount of reductions in spending over this next decade where the markets say, hey, these guys have finally done something that makes sense. That's what I hope happens. I actually hope the number is not $3 trillion, but $4 trillion. That's what everybody has signaled, and not back-end loaded, but front-end loaded.
Yeah, but you're looking at, let me take that same point to Mr. Udall. Okay. Senator Udall, you're really looking at a $1 trillion deal. I mean, some people say Mr. Reid might add some spending cuts and keep the one-year extension right away. But you're nowhere near what the credit rating agencies want, which is $4 trillion. What are you going to do about that, Senator Udall? In other words, a downgrade may be more harmful than the debt issue.
Larry, you and I completely agree, and Senator Corker and I actually agree. The number ought to be more like $4 to $5 trillion. We ought to put in place something along the lines of the Bowles-Simpson Commission recommendations. So you have $3 in spending cuts and you have $1 in revenue enhancements. Everybody agrees we can't raise taxes right now, but we could simplify the tax code, streamline the tax code into a lot of these subsidies and loopholes and generate some significant revenue. That's the way forward, is a combination that the Bowles-Simpson Commission recommended, as well as the Domenici-Rivlin Commission.
Just on that point, it's a key point. Is it possible, Mr. Udall, that Senator Reid's so-called compromise, yet to be specifically defined, could put in some enforcement mechanisms for this joint congressional deficit commission that's supposed to report by year end? Is it possible that you could get your added deficit cuts from that commission if it were enforced?
It's possible. One of the debates is about what kind of triggers ought to be included. I'm somebody that thinks you need to be serious about revenue. You've got to cut, but you can't get from here to there without revenue, Larry. The big challenge is Medicare and Social Security. That's almost half the federal budget. Unless you deal with entitlements in a smart way, we're not going to get to where we want, which is lower annual deficits and a flattening of the annual debt. And eventually we got to start to pay off some of that aggregated debt that hangs over our economy, hangs over our kids' future.
Senator Corker, I'll give you the last word, sir. We really haven't made very much hay from this debt crisis, have we? This is another opportunity lost to straighten out the federal books.
Well, we don't know that yet, Larry. And if you think about 3 weeks ago, we were looking at a way for a debt ceiling to happen and nobody take the blame. I think we've come a long way. I objected to that strongly. I do believe that this ought to be a seminal moment for our country. I do think we're going to get spending reductions, and I'm going to continue to push throughout the course of this weekend that they're large enough to make a difference as to the way people view U.S. debt. So I think we will have a compromise. I do think, obviously, the debt ceiling is not a threat to the American people or people who rely upon it, but this second issue is now the issue we need to focus on, and I hope we get it right over the weekend. There are a lot of people talking about it, okay?
Thank you very much, Senator Mark Udall and Senator Bob Corker. We appreciate your time tonight.